Hello and welcome to the Warhammer Film Club, a regular podcast where I am joined by a guest to talk about two amazing movies that have crossed paths with Warhammer history or our own personal hobby history in some way. Today I am joined by the fabulous Wib from Snipe and Wib. Wib, how are you doing?
I am doing very well, thank you very much. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to talking about these movies we've got because we've got one absolute classic. We're talking about The Thing, which everyone I'm sure knows or is familiar with to some extent. We're also talking about something that's a little bit less familiar, The Final Program, which is based on a Michael
Yes.
Moorcock book, right? Which is a
I
very
had
unusual,
never heard of this movie
right?
in my life before you mentioned it, and I am really glad that you asked me to watch this because this is my sort of jam. This is exactly the sort of movie that I watch and then torment people by telling them about it. So you picked very well.
Oh, I'm very pleased to hear that. So I was familiar with it just in terms of its name, but
Mm,
I'd never seen it myself. So this is my first time watching it as well. So
mm,
yeah, this is The Final Program from 1973. It is based on one of the Jerry Cornelius novels, the first Jerry Cornelius novel from
mm.
Michael Moorcock. So for anybody who doesn't know, Michael Moorcock, a extremely prolific author who had written Elric and Hawkmoon and lots of other amazing stories featuring this concept of an eternal champion who is the balance between law and chaos, and has gone on to influence plenty of Warhammer stuff.
I
Um,
think I think influence is being maybe a little kind to what Games Workshop did with the concept of chaos.
sure,
I would
yeah.
say half inch it, but
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of legal definitions for half
have you
inching
ever
it
seen
in.
Michael Moorcock talk about it?
I have seen some of that. What's really interesting is that I think early on he seemed pretty sanguine about it. He was like, "Oh
Mm,
yeah, we're all just borrowing from each other. We're doing
mm.
like cool stuff. Go and have fun." And then over time, as Warhammer became what Warhammer became, and Games Workshop as well, he increasingly was like, "Well, maybe Warhammer's owes a little bit more to me and my work than has been
I
suggested."
think the quote that I saw about him was he just said, well, I think he says like, well, Warhammer are just nothing but thieves. I'm like, all
Right.
right.
Yeah,
I
so
mean, when it comes to chaos, like the eight-pointed star, like is a Michael Moorcock thing. Like, I'll be perfectly honest. Michael Moorcock is one of those authors I have always meant to read is how English works, and I just never got around to it. My dad's read basically all of his stuff, and he's like, "You really should read this." And every now and again, I'll stumble upon something and go, "Oh, this is just stolen from Michael Moorcock." It's like a rabbit hole led me to learn about. I can't remember what they're called, but they're from the Elric books, where it's like like human-esque looking things. They look like elves that are
right.
descendant of dragons. And I'm looking at it and going, "Oh, these are just Drukhari. Oh, this is where Drukhari come from. Okay."
Right.
It's like, "Oh,
There's,
all right,
I think there's a lot of it, and
yeah."
it's because, but it's also Moorcock's work, and I've not read an awful lot. I
Mm,
came to it super late, and I'm now only sort of exploring it
mm,
in more detail. But I think like the genre and the space when he was writing a lot of this work, there's loads of people exploring this kind of like
yeah.
so he's not alone in it. Obviously, he's forging a path and sort of bringing ideas together, but he was himself borrowing or inspired
Mm,
by like Paul Anderson's Broken Sword, for instance.
yeah.
Like that's where the cursed sword comes from, like the idea of the black sword that is then a huge part of Elric's
Yeah,
mythology.
I mean, I'm flippant about it and just saying, oh, they just stole it. But the reality is that all art is a process of like, different influences and like grabbing everything that you're inspired by and jamming it together. And sometimes that's more elegant in a way that
Hmm.
the influences are obscured enough that people don't necessarily instantly notice, like how people don't instantly notice like the Seven Samurai stuff in Star Wars if you're not
Sure.
already familiar with it. But like, sometimes it's pretty blatant, and early Games Workshop was pretty blatant with
Yeah,
what their influences were. And so I think it means that I can absolutely understand an author maybe being a little bit miffed with how successful and how much money they've made off stuff that is was originally at least just their thing, but with the serial numbers filed off a little
sure.
bit.
Yeah.
So I can sort of understand why like Moorcock's had
I,
some interviews where
absolutely.
he's been a little bit saltier about it. I very much understand that.
Oh yeah, and it is a reasonable place to be in, and at its best, I mean, I totally agree. I think when you take
Mm.
all of this different stuff, and if you're being generous, when you're sort of in dialogue with these other
Mm.
creations, with these inspirations, and then you're creating something new from it. That's I ultimately think why Warhammer worked so well was because it
Yeah.
did take a load of stuff, but yeah, in terms of the Moorcock of it, like there's dedications to Moorcock in early Warhammer. There's no
Mm.
dedications to Tolkien, which is interesting. So like,
Mm.
there's an acknowledgement that Moorcock's influence is pretty big, and chaos being so integral to Warhammer and being very much borrowed
Yeah.
from Moorcock's work for certain is really like yeah. There's definitely that connection. They have built it into something else now, and it is its own thing now,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think. But yeah, in the early days, there's it's pretty close. It's pretty close.
There's there's a lot of things where like you'll be reading something and you do just go, oh, that's what they were riffing on. Oh,
Yes.
that's what this is.
Yeah.
Ah, it's like, when you, the first time you read Dune and you go, oh, this is where the Men of Iron come from. This is where navigators come from. This is, so many little nods. Oh,
Yeah.
there's a God Emperor, like there's
Concepts and all. Yeah, loads of stuff, right? Loads and loads of
yeah.
stuff. So I've actually never read Dune. I've only seen Dune, but it was always a part of my sort of cinematic repertoire. Like it is. So that
If
relationship has always been there. I
if you
imagine.
ever if you ever do any series where you talk about the Dune novels, please talk to me because I have the brain worms uh, of having read the original six Dune novels, including the two weird ones on the end where Frank Herbert was really horny whilst writing them.
As I understand it, they're really weird as well, right?
They are.
Okay,
They
well
are
that's
very strange.
topic
I
to
really
return.
want them to adapt the later movies. Not because I think they're good books, but because I think it would be very funny to watch Hollywood try and adapt some of the things in them. Because yeah. So, oh hey, everyone just sits on dogs now. They call them chair dogs. That just happens in the fifth book. Not
Okay.
mentioned really, or like elaborated upon. It's just they sat on the chair dog, and you go, what the heck is a chair dog, Frank? What is happening? It is actually one of the we'll get on the actual thing. Sorry, but one of the other I think the lesser appreciated elements that is taken from Dune, or at least I feel feels very Dune-esque about 40K,
Hmm.
is the idea of stories being set over thousands and thousands of years,
Right.
the sort of deep time of it, of the reverberations of things from thousands of years
Sure.
previous echo throughout, and the story is set across generations and generations of
Sure.
time. That's very Dune. Like Dune has a couple of times where it has time skips that are literally like over 1,000 years.
Sure.
Duncan Idaho's still there because it's all Duncan Idaho is always there,
Right.
for reasons that are both complex and very silly.
He's an eternal champion, maybe.
Yeah, they just keep cloning him. They just keep cloning him.
Okay.
There's always a Duncan. Yeah, but yeah,
Yeah.
I think there's lots of elements
That's
like that get
interesting.
taken from other
Yeah.
things. But yeah,
And actually, that interesting because not quite in the same way as I understand it, but Moorcock is also doing this kind of like multi-generational,
mm,
huge, like enormous timelines, but he's doing it across dimensions as well with his Eternal Champion
mm,
stuff, right? Where it's literally the multiverse, one of the earlier multiverse examples.
Mm.
The final program and Jerry Cornelius, I don't think is necessarily representative of Moorcock's fantasy work because this is
Mm.
like a swinging jazz infused James Bond sort of kind of guy. So it's
I
not,
don't even know how to describe the
yeah,
genre of this
it's
movie.
very unusual. But in the film at least, we're following this guy, Jerry Cornelius, who's also a doctor and a PhD and an expert scientist, but he's also a secret agent, but he's also kind of like got a sort of rock star vibe as well.
He
And
is a more earnest Buckaroo Banzai, basically.
sure, yes, yeah,
Uh,
yeah, which itself indescribable
yes,
as a
yes.
movie. But in this story of the final program, there's a lot going on, but there's also not a lot going on for long periods of sort of contemplative, Jerry Cornelius sort of on his own. His father has recently passed away, and he's going to potentially inherit the house, and he's got an evil brother, and he's got a sort of um a sister who is, almost like the
Definitely a character in the movie.
yeah, who is at least mentioned, and is
They
like
cast an actress. She
yes,
is
yeah,
present.
and the actress who plays Jerry Cornelius' sister is actually from the Richard Donner Superman movies. She is it Ursa? Ursa, yeah,
Oh,
that's right. She's the Kryptonian who's imprisoned alongside Zod.
oh. Okay. This movie was like full of actors and
Yes.
stuff where I was like seeing them and going like, where do I recognize you from? The one that finally made me actually Google someone was is much later. There's a waitress. I'm like, where do I recognize you from? Your voice is and your face is really familiar. And then I realized it's Sandra Dickinson who played Trillian in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy TV show.
Right.
And I'm like, oh,
Okay.
that's where I recognize her from. Okay, that makes sense.
Fantastic. But yeah, so there are loads of like people who turn up in it.
Mm,
I mean, I think we there's also like Ronald Lacey from Raiders of the Lost Ark
mm,
is in one scene. So he plays the Nazi who's tracking down Indy, who
mm.
burns his hand
Yeah.
um on the talisman.
Mm.
He's in like one scene as a very bizarre kind of like I mean, it's just very, very strange. He's
I,
getting information for Jerry.
I suppose it probably behooves us to try and describe what the plot of it is because this is a movie people probably haven't seen
Yes,
because like
and
I'm
go on. What did you think the plot was?
okay, so basically it start like the this is really broad strokes.
Mm.
The plot of the movie is that Jerry Cornelius is a playboy physicist, a thing that definitely exists. Yeah, he inherits his father's house after his father's death. And he's like, okay, my goal now is to rescue my sister from my drug-addled brother, and I am going to blow up the house
Yes.
because I hate it. Which I think there's a lot of people who go home and blow up your childhood at home is a very relatable thing, and I'm like, fair enough. Then his sis that goes all awry. His brother escapes. He accidentally kills his sister. Um, then begins the second act of the movie, which is only tangentially related to the first act of the movie, in which he is now tracking down his brother with the help of someone. He then tracks him down, kills him, which then leads him to then get entangled with what the actual plot of the movie is, which is the final program, which is, despite being spelt with an E at the end, um, shows the age of, it's actually just showing the age of the movie because it's a computer program and that's how that used to be spelled. And he's actually engaging with a what was a Nazi program to create the ultimate life form that people have carried on doing, and so he he must have sex in the sunroom until he becomes the ultimate being, which turns out to be like a stereotypical caveman.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you've summed it up pretty well.
That is the movie. But that description, I know that sounds like I'm describing three separate movies. But it is one. You can tell it's from a book because that is the thing. In a book, you have the room to let those three segments all breathe. In an hour and a half movie, it is a bit breakneck, and sometimes it does feel like the movie has like it suddenly changes gears
Oh, yeah.
quite aggressively. Like that first part, I was like, "Oh, we're doing a murder house thing. This
Hmm.
is like the mansion is full of like science traps,
Which is
and
quite
like
cool, right? Because they need to break into the mansion to get the evil
yeah,
brother, and to because the
I'm like,
evil
this is a
brother is in the
heist.
house. Yeah, yeah, because they're gonna kidnap his sister back. So
Yeah,
that's the sort of the first act, and that was quite a cool idea. And it's kind of got prisoner vibes, and there's all sorts of
yeah.
like strange, like you say, there's science traps where people get lost inside inflatable rooms, which is very weird.
There's a chest themed door that just stabs someone in the chest a bit. Not enough to like be a problem, just a bit.
Yeah, because I thought that guy was going to die because you have
Yeah,
to move, you have to do a chess move in order to unlock the door. He does it. He actually does the right move, I think,
yeah,
and it still stabs him. A spear comes out and stabs him in the
yeah.
chest, and he's like, "Oh, I'll be fine." And he's
It just
not.
stabs him like a centimeter, and he's just like,
Yeah,
ow. And you think, oh, he's been like poisoned or something.
yeah.
No, no.
Does nothing. Does absolutely nothing. Yeah.
And then that
Um,
part of the movie just ends.
Yeah, and I guess we do have during that sequence, we do like that is where Jerry falls in with some weird sort of Men
Mm.
in Black scientist types who
Yeah,
were working with Jerry's father. And then there's also a sort of femme fatale-esque character who is
Miss
she
Branagh.
yes, that's right, yeah,
Yeah,
who's kind of reminds me in a certain way of like an Emma Frost kind of character from X-Men.
yeah,
So
yeah.
sort of, very glamorous and also
Mm.
quite scary, I
Yes.
suppose. And that sort of puts the team together. That's why Jerry Cornelius is working with these guys. But then, like you say, yeah, he gets into like actually quite a cool action scene fight with his brother, like
Mm.
over his sister who is asleep on the or knocked out on the bed,
Yeah.
and they're using like little needler guns, which is
Yeah,
quite cool.
the thing that I think is most fascinating, because again, I said this is like a me kind of movie, um, because it's ostensibly a dystopian movie set in like a world where like the US has nuked Amsterdam. The Vatican doesn't exist. Like, there's a line where it's like someone's like, "Oh, Rome isn't the same without the Vatican," and they're like, "Oh, well, I like the new place better." And you're like, "What?" There's loads of little references like how the world is like all messed up, but also it's decidedly the early 70s. This isn't retrofuturism. This is what if the future was the early 70s, which
Yeah.
is like a slightly different vibe. Like there's parts of it where I'm like, I don't know if that's supposed to be dystopian or if it's just because it was filmed in Britain in the early 70s. And so everything's a bit crap because
Yeah.
that's just what Britain what is slash was. Um, so it just has such a weird vibe about that stuff. Like I don't know, does it actually ever? I can't remember if it says what year it's set in.
I don't remember. It's post-apocalyptic in one sense because they talk about there being there's population problems and famines and things like that, I think.
Mm.
So it's some point in the future, but yeah, I don't remember them specifying when.
But like they also make no effort to like, oh no, the cars are all just like
Oh
the
yeah,
cars of the
and the
time.
streets
Like,
are just regular, like it's all
yeah,
very normal for the era.
yeah, it's like, oh yeah, that car. I'm pretty sure that's like some kind of British Leyland thing. Okay, yeah, sure. That's definitely going to be around in the future. Um, but yeah, they also have bits of obviously futuristic tech, like little needle guns, and so it's this odd combination of to us the past and the future at the
Mm.
same time. Which it is retrofuturism, but like also not because it also makes no effort to try and be the 70s vision of the future. It's just the 70s, but it's the future.
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
again, that's my jam. That's the sort of confident oddity that makes me remember a movie, whether it's good or not. Because this is the thing, I don't know if this is a good movie, but I like it.
Yeah, I think it would defy categorization as a good or a bad film because it
Mm,
goes in so many different directions at such speed and with so many
mm,
different bells and whistles that it is a wild ride. Like it was always interesting, no matter
mm,
what was happening. I quite like so it's John Finch who plays Jerry Cornelius, and
mm,
I'm not that familiar with him. I don't think I've seen him in anything else.
mm.
I think this was supposed to be the role that kind of catapulted him to stardom, but I don't. Obviously, it didn't do that. But did you see any of the sort of alternate castings who they tried to get to play Jerry
No.
Cornelius early on? So apparently they were going to do it was going to be Timothy Dalton as Jerry Cornelius, and then his then partner Vanessa Redgrave was going to
Mm,
play Miss Brunner, the female
yeah.
lead, which I think
Mm.
would have been really interesting. Timothy Dalton in this role could have been
I could see
fascinating.
that working. One of the things I really like about it is that Jerry, as a character, especially, although a lot of the characters in the movie do this, they've got this kind of like cheeky, almost self-aware
Mm.
sort of like dialogue throughout the whole movie. Of like acknowledging the absurdity of things, and there's a lot of like fun one-liners. Like one that I really liked is they okay. Previously established this movie is weird. They go to a pinball themed nightclub
Yeah.
in which people are in giant orbs bouncing between things. This is not acknowledged. It is merely a factor that you have to just accept. And there's a guy who's like who's like obsessed with the pin. They actually have pinball machines there, and he's like a weapons dealer that Jerry's dealing with because he's trying to secure napalm to blow up his home.
Hmm.
And he says to me, he's like, okay, I need you to get me some napalm. And he's like, oh, I can get you it in like 2 or 3 days. And he's like, that's not quick enough. I need it tomorrow. He's like, I can't get it for you tomorrow. It's Sunday. And he's like, why can't you get napalm on a Sunday? He's like, the shops are shut.
Yeah, I liked that a lot.
Like, there's loads of little lines like that throughout the whole thing. Like,
Yeah.
later on, he's like, I hate long goodbyes, so piss off. Like there's lots of just little there's a bit where he's engaging in a fight with someone and like he's like stumbling all over the place. There's loads of like little one-liners throughout it, and then he starts losing. He gets like stabbed in the arm with something, and he's running away, and he's like, Miss Bronner, come back, I'm losing.
Yeah, I remember.
It's almost like he's a comedy character in a
Yeah.
non-comedy movie.
There was a bit when he tried to chat up a waitress, and his opening line, which is brilliant, was "How are you fixed destiny wise?" Which I just thought was like, the confidence on that is brilliant.
He's
Um,
like equal parts charming, a creep, very funny, and very tedious.
yeah, yes, I think
All at
that's
the same
fair.
time.
I did like much later on, and he sort of has he uses a similar line a couple of times, but later
Mm,
on he just says that I have it on very good authority that the world's about to come to an end, so I want to
mm.
go home and watch it on TV, which
Yeah.
which I thought was a great sign off.
This is, like I say, one thing. There's a one little element about him I love, which is so early on that he's in his car, and it's showing him as like he's obviously abusing different substances, so he's like pouring like whiskey or something into like a disposable cup
Yeah.
and like knocks stuff off, and so you see like the cups land in like his like footwell, and it's full of like drinks containers, scattered pills, and importantly half-eaten chocolate digestives,
Yes.
which I love that those things are treated on the same level. And you do notice where a few times throughout the movie, he just happens to be eating a chocolate digestive. And then later he opens a fridge, his fridge, and it's just full of loose chocolate digestives. And the door is full of packets of them. And I'm
Yeah.
just like, man, I've never felt so close to a character before in a movie. This is representation for me.
Yeah, I loved that. I absolutely, but because it means as well that he has literally like unwrapped all of these digestive biscuits and then stowed them away in his fridge
I
freezer, which is
I have
brilliant.
so many questions about Jerry Cornelius as a man. Like, what's going on? What's his deal? It's like one of the reasons why I did my nails today was because he's got his nails done throughout most of the movie, but not all, and they're very neat. So I was sitting there the whole time, like, so he's like taking that off and reapplying it, and I'm like, and he's like kind of a loner, so he's doing it himself, and obviously it's done by the makeup department. But I'm sitting there as a real person going like, yeah, but one hand's always messier than the other if you're doing it on your own because you're doing it with your non-dominant hand. So he's really good at that. So he's fastidious about it. Like I couldn't help but interpret a little bit of like character about him there, you know?
Yeah, that's great.
I
He is a
get.
fascinating character, right?
Hmm.
Though apparently Mick Jagger was also suggested as a potential like role as an actor for it, which like in a sense I can see completely. In terms of Jagger's actual acting capability, I don't think he could have done the job.
No.
But I think John Finch is really like he has the right balance of he's intriguing and he's kind of he can be a bit of a jerk, but he can also be quite charming, and so he
Hmm.
worked really well, I think, throughout.
He works really well as a main character because yeah, you even when he's being dick, you still want to see where it's going, and you can't help but root for him a little bit because he's terrible, but like in an endearing way,
Yes,
you
yeah,
know.
I think that's a good way of putting it. Yeah,
And I think
absolutely.
it helps that he exists in a world where basically everyone also is terrible. So, you know, he's sort of like in some ways he's sort of the only person that's like outside of his sister, which is a weird thing I noticed. So on the I don't know if this is present in the book more so, and that's where they're getting this from. But the Wikipedia page for it made a real big thing about his relationship with his sister is implied to be incestuous, and I'm like,
Right.
I didn't get that from the movie. There's a few moments where I'm like, I could get how you could interpret it like that, but you don't act again. The sister is
Yeah, she's
barely a
just not
character.
present enough in the movie.
She's a MacGuffin, like
Yeah.
that is present for the first act of the movie and then instantly forgotten about.
Yes.
Like that's like his entire motivation at the start of the movie. And then as the moment she's dead, he's like, "Oh well, I
Yeah.
guess I'm on to something new now."
Especially him having been the one who accidentally killed her as well. Yes,
Yeah,
he'd been poisoned at that point or sort of given administered drugs by his brother, his evil
yeah,
brother. So it wasn't really his fault, but he sort of carries no guilt after that. And yeah, he
yeah.
never really mentions her ever again.
Yeah, it's like yeah, it's a very strange thing. I mean, it's a little bit indicative of, that kind of story, the women being very disposable in it.
Sure, yeah.
But it is a strange thing that it's like such a big deal to him and then nothing for the
Yeah.
rest of the movie.
Yeah.
It's
Because then he does go on to so that waitress that he was trying to chat up, like she comes back with him and Miss Bruner to his apartment, and he just goes off to bed, and then the
yeah.
waitress and Miss Bruner are sort of hooking up, and then when he gets up in the morning, the waitress is gone, and he sort of he
Mm,
understands because Miss Bruner has a lot of one-liners about like like I
mm,
can't remember any of them off the top of my head, but they're all sort of around the theme of like, oh, that person is, it's almost like still around, or
mm.
they had to go somewhere, or that sort of thing. And ultimately, it turns out that she's absorbing their essence, and
Yeah.
they're becoming one with her. And he's aware of this. It seems from the start, but he's just really casual about it that she's
Yeah.
absorbing people she sleeps with.
It's yeah, she does just eat people. She eats like two people throughout the movie.
Yeah,
And you see because like her hand goes up and then like an effect goes up, so it goes all like slow motiony and like warped, and it's like okay, okay, we just understand this. Um, it's a yeah, it's another one of the things like so what one thing I will connect to the thing actually the other part of this double feature is
Hmm.
that I think these two movies have the connective tissue of that they are both movies that raise a lot of questions in the audience that they are not interested in explaining.
Yeah,
And I think to now that can be very frustrating in a lot of movies, but I think both of these movies do it well. As in, this movie does it um, because it's weird. It's trying to be weird. It's supposed to be a little off kilter and a little unusual, and it's it keeps you guessing about where things are going, and that's sort of what it's doing. It's a mystery at the end
Hmm.
of the day of what's going on. And the thing is also a mystery, and that's keeping things hidden from you to keep it suspenseful. So they're both kind of doing a similar thing, I feel. I was like, oh yeah, there is actually a bit of connect. There is some
Yeah,
kind of
there is.
connecting these
Yeah.
two. I will say, I think the one thing that does connect this to Warhammer,
Hmm.
to dangerously get on track here for a second, um, is the whole end part where you're getting into this like program of creating like the ultimate like. So they've basically got like so this Nazi project of like making the ultimate life form
Hmm.
involves like they've got a room full of brains.
Yeah.
Which is like, oh yeah, when we said we had the best brains working on this, we weren't kidding. So it's like all of these like dead guys' brains that they've got all hooked up. So they're basically creating like a computer which is called Duel, which is a an acronym that I forget what it means. That's the sum of all human knowledge, and they're going to download that into a human, but they can't do it into a single human. They need to do it into like a combination human, and that will, for reasons, create the ultimate like self-replicating immortal
Yeah.
human. Like they will like be like the next iteration of mankind, and like there is a little bit of the emperor about that, of
Sure.
him being like a gestalt entity made of all of the shaman
Even
back in the
born,
past.
the sunroom
Mm,
has been saturated with the sun's energies, and it's
mm,
like this super bright space. Obviously, it's still got a sexy bed arrangement in it, but it is
yes.
this like it's this lab space that is or it is just burning with the sun's energies. So it's kind of this like is there a sort of Star Child kind of a, vibe,
Yeah, yeah,
in
a
the
very
mix on
literal
it?
Star
Yeah,
Child.
exactly.
And the whole idea like of this of making like a new iterative thing of mankind is a little like there's a bit of that in 40K. It's not the
Yeah.
strongest connection, admittedly. It's
Sure. Well, I
but
mean, but even like the brains are like, like servitor kind of like human because they together are then like a supercomputer. All of the brains working together at the same time are like actively contributing to all of the nonsense that's taken place. So
yeah, yeah.
there is the use of human and technology together in order to create
Yeah,
whatever, like computers and stuff like that.
yeah, it's an interesting one, and it's funny because like the that element of the movie is sort of like it's hinted at throughout it, but basically you only find out what the movie's about 15 minutes from the end.
Yeah.
Which is funny because all of like when I was watching it, like the blurb for the movie, that I kind of wish I hadn't seen before watching it. I know it's a bit late now, but if you are interested in watching this movie, just watch it now. Don't listen to this. Watch it now. Listen to this afterwards. Too late to say that now, I guess, but but so that like front loads the whole where they're trying to create a perfect being sort of
Mm.
thing, and like I was watching the movie and going, have I just missed where this is what the movie's about? Because they've been like, yeah, there's a few mentions of the final program and that it's being used to like create like a sum of human knowledge and like that kind of thing. There's a few things like mentioned here and there, but it's not what the movie's about
Yeah.
for the most of it. So I was like, what's going on here?
Yeah, because even towards
It's
the end, yes, it is. It's sort of it's the inciting action for the third act, but really, it's not quite about that either. It's kind of
mm,
more about what Jerry Cornelius wants his role in the future to be, and
mm,
is he going to? Because it turns out that these sort of Nazi scientists were working with his father, and that's why his
mm,
father had created the final program, the missing piece of the puzzle, and
mm,
then it wasn't. It was going to be Miss Bruner and another chap who were gonna
Dimitri,
Dimitri. Yeah, they're
who
together.
is
We're gonna.
mostly referred to as just the Greek.
Yes, that's right. And he's the perfect human. But Miss Brunner decides on her own that actually she'd rather create the perfect sort of specimen with Jerry Cornelius. So she just kills or tries to kill Dimitri off
Mm. I mean,
on
to be
her.
fair, although she is a very unreliable character to say this, she does say that the final program, the last piece of the puzzle that Jerry's
She
dad was
does.
working on, was written with Jerry in
You
mind.
were quite
So
right.
that's
Yeah.
why they should use Jerry. But also, she eats people and just does whatever she wants. So she might also be making it up.
Yeah.
Who knows? Who knows?
But then, yeah, Jerry's is he's just like really surprisingly relaxed about it. I felt like he ultimately
Mm.
there's a bit of resistance from him, but ultimately he goes along with it. In the end, he goes into the sunroom. They do their sort of experimental lovemaking, and then they do create this perfect new
Mm.
organism using the power of the brains and the sun and everything else. Because I was thinking as they're talking about it, they want it to be self-fertilizing, they want it to be self-regenerating, and they want them to be immortal. So I was
Mm.
thinking that they're talking about orcs, right? They're talking about
Yeah,
40k
yeah, yeah,
orcs.
yeah, yeah.
And then when he actually emerges from the chamber as this new hybrid creature, he is like a Neanderthal man, right? It's very, very
Yeah,
strange.
he's like the archetypical like caveman. He's like
Yeah,
hairier, thick brow. He's like hunched over. And it's played by Jerry's actor, like because I was half expecting it to come out and it be played by like a new actor and to be like this ethereal
yeah,
being or something.
like an Eldar rather than an orc.
Yeah. And it's just this scrungly little guy, and it's like, yeah, all right, that's the ultimate life form, sure, why not? And they're in Lapland,
Yeah,
so then he just walks out into the snow at the end. He's
yeah.
naked. He
Not
just walks out into the
before
snow.
a final sign-off line where he just turns to the camera. He literally just breaks the fourth wall, turns to the camera and says, "It's a very tasty world," and and sort of smacks his lips and walks off.
Yeah, because he is talking to Dimitri at that point, but like, yeah, he
Oh,
does
I
just look at
suppose
the camera and say,
he
yeah,
was doing it to the camera. I thought he was talking
yeah.
to me. I thought Jerry had something to say to me
No, no, the
directly.
movies do talk to you, Jordan. The movies are talking to you.
But yeah, a very odd one. I mean, like overall, you said that you enjoyed the experience at the very least of watching the final
Yes.
program, right?
I love this. There is like I am a sci-fi guy. Like that is the big reason why Codex Compliant is about 40k more than anything else. Obviously we cover all sorts, but the reason it is about 40k more than anything else is mostly just down to the fact that I just like sci-fi more. I have never been a big fantasy person. It's like, I read Lord of the Rings. What more do I need? Um, that's the basic text, you know. um, I've read it all basically now.
Yeah.
I know that's not true for people
You got to read
in
some
the
Eternal Champion
comments.
stuff. You got to read some Moorcock.
Yeah, again, I do mean to read that, but I'm more of a sci-fi guy. So I watch a lot of sci-fi, and I like my modern sci-fi, obviously, but I have a soft spot for the very experimental and weird proclivities of old science fiction. Like I read a lot of old sci-fi, like little novels, like the little short novel, novella, or not even novellas, they are a bit longer than that, but
Sure.
like the short little ones you can buy from like £1 from like secondhand shops.
Right.
I quite like reading those because you find all of these interesting ideas because so much of modern sci-fi is very clearly influenced by a lot of the big names, whether it be Star Wars, Star Trek, or even if it's say a bit more grounded in a more kind of NASA punky kind of thing. There's very defined genres of it, and whilst the weird stuff still obviously exists, there was no rules back in the day, and they were all riffing on each other's ideas, as I said earlier, and so you get these oddities, and I feel there's a bit of creative verve to the old ones that I find really engaging, even when they're not necessarily good.
Hmm.
But I think structurally there's a lot of weird problems with the movie. Like, as in it, what does the first third of the movie have to do with the rest of the movie? But the but like it's kind of artsy with the whole thing. There's a lot of very interesting shots, the way things are framed. Like there's some interesting uses there. And like I say, it's kind of vaguely there's like a self-awareness to it throughout it. Like Jerry Cornelius is aware that he's in an absurd sci-fi story,
Yeah.
and so is sort of playing up to that throughout it. And several other characters, like there is the whole, oh, where did that character go on? Oh, they're still around, still around. And they're like, yeah, but like where? And it's like, oh, maybe you should just forget that question. Things like it's not the exact line, but it's like that kind of like, don't worry about it. There's a
Yeah.
thing that happened. Don't worry about it. And yeah, I really. I'm very engaged with that kind of thing. It's not going to be for everybody.
Yeah.
Absolutely, this is not. I'm not sitting there going, if you watch this, you are going to enjoy it. I think if you enjoy 70s sci-fi, um, or you get a kick out of movies that are just unashamed with being exactly what they are,
Mm,
you'll get a kick out of it.
yeah.
And it just makes me intrigued to like see the book to see how
Yeah.
close this is to the book, because there's certain elements, like I say, the structure, I can see how that would work better in a novel.
Yeah.
But there's some elements of it, like especially some of the quipping and stuff, is a very cinema way of doing things.
Sure.
And so
Yeah.
I wonder how much of the dialogue is directly taken from the thing, or was that all just written for the movie? I'd be really intrigued to see that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question because there is that irreverent kind of like witty tone that
Mm,
pervades the whole thing. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a very reasonable like position to take on it because it's tough to
mm.
recommend it, I think, in terms of, go out and watch it because it's so specific to a certain type of viewer.
You
I
have
was
to know
very
it's like I reckon it's a movie which well, okay, I didn't have to recommend it to my dad because I told him that I was going to watch this, and I just explained that it was a science fiction movie based on a Michael Moorcock novel from the early 70s, and he was like, well, I'm adding that to my watch list. But my dad is perhaps the only person I know that I would unambiguously recommend it to, because you have to know a person is going to be into that to recommend it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Even Michael Moorcock didn't like it, so he was not keen on the
Mm,
movie in the end. I think there was some challenges in production, as there often is
yeah.
with this kind of stuff, and like the director, I think Robert First
Mm,
rewrote a lot of the script and changed a lot of stuff and wanted to take in his own direction. Apparently, there's a neat bit of trivia I thought was that
mm.
Moorcock wanted one of his favorite bands, Hawkwind, who he did some
Yes.
work with, right? He wanted them to do the entire soundtrack, but the director just didn't like their music, so he squashed that idea. But Moorcock and Hawkwind are both in the pinball arcade at one point, so they both cameo
Okay.
in the movie.
I do think it would have given the movie a different tone. I don't think a better tone.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's a because of the nature of the movie, like it's so much going for a sort of Bond espionage kind of thing, but with more of a sort of slick, kind of jazzy vibe, like a
Yeah, well, I mean,
groovy vibe.
the interesting is like if the movie has a theme tune to it, it's a bit of brass band music that
Mhm.
plays at the start of the movie that reoccurs several times. There's just this kind of upbeat thing, and the first time you hear it is during like a funerary procession,
Yeah.
which sets you up for the kind of tone of the movie. Which is this kind of, yeah, it's like this oddly upbeat thing whilst bleak things are happening,
Mm,
which I think if you replace that with Hawkwind, it wouldn't hit the same. And I
sure.
as much as goofy sci-fi movie where the soundtrack is made by Hawkwind is something that I would normally go, yeah, sure, sign me up. Um, I think in this case, I think it was the right call
I
on the
think it
book to
was
do that.
for the way the movie went. I think it was.
Yeah,
But thinking
I
about
do have
that,
one bit of.
oh, go on.
Sorry.
You got
No, I was
something.
gonna say I do have one bit of trivia myself, because I fell down a tiny wiki hole when the film ended and I saw the credits, which is that part of the costumes, there was actually like a bunch of people credited with them, but one of them was a guy called Tommy Nutter. And so I had to know everything about Tommy Nutter instantly because you that's a name. That is a name alert. And it turns out very famous tailor.
Right.
His name really was Thomas Nutter. That was actually his name.
Right.
And a couple of things that you probably know him from for stuff he did, 'cause he did a lot of like clothes for like stars like Mick Jagger and things. But he dressed three of the Beatles for the Abbey Road cover.
Right.
And he also made the clothes for the Joker in the 1989 Batman movie.
Wow. Okay, that's cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's quite prestigious. Quite a good career there.
yeah. And I wouldn't have known that if I didn't think his name was funny.
Sure. And that's how you fall down the wiki holes, really, isn't it? It's just some
That's how half my
random
YouTube
nonsense.
videos start. Oh, that seems weird. Let's go find out what that's about.
On that topic, there's a very cool sort of little connection. So Michael Moorcock also wrote a Doctor Who novel,
Mm,
and we know that Jerry Cornelius is an Eternal Champion or an aspect of the Eternal Champion, which is this kind
mm.
of this entity that appears in many different universes across the multiverse, and whoever is the Eternal Champion of that universe essentially has the same role to
Yeah.
provide a balance. But in his Doctor Who novel, he had a character called Captain Cornelius. So whether or not that's Jerry or someone else, whether it's an Eternal Champion in the Doctor Who universe or not,
Mm.
is unknown. But that
I
seems like
mean,
a pretty cool thing.
Doctor Who does exist within the Tommy Westphall universe, so
Does
it's
it
already
now?
part
So
of yeah, through very complicated things.
right.
If you don't know about the Tommy Westphall universe, do yourself a favor and look it up. It's a trip.
Because this is where, in a very, very light summary,
Mm.
this is where, because of the end of a show called General Hospital, I think it was, right? Which
Saint
is it
Elsewhere,
Saint Elsewhere? That's right. Yes,
I
and
think.
it turns out that it's all in a dream, but because it's in a dream, this child's dream or snow globe or something, all of the other guest stars from the show who have played characters, the same characters in other shows, means all of those other shows are in the same dream,
Yeah,
essentially, right?
basically, Tommy Westphall is a character in this show, and yeah, when the show ends, it all turns out to be his dream. And the thing is, that show crossed over with so many other shows throughout its run, either the characters in the show appearing in other shows or characters from other shows appearing in it. That meant that technically all of those shows also existed, and then every show that those ones crossed over with, and it spirals out. And obviously, the links get very, very tenuous.
Mm.
The most extreme versions of it, where it contains basically every work of fiction, all exists in
Well,
this
because The
kid's head.
Simpsons, I think, is in it because Mulder and Scully are in it, and a detective from something like Homicide: Life on the Streets or Law and Order, I think, was
Yeah,
in an X Files. So like it connects
yeah,
The
it's stuff like
Simpsons to the
that.
X Files to Law and Order back to say so like all of those shows and therefore all
Mm.
of the people and cameos they've covered are all in it. But then so Doctor Who's in it as well, which
Yeah, I
therefore
know
means
it's one of the more tenuous ones, if I
maybe the
remember
Eternal
correctly.
Champion is in
Because
there.
I think it's connected because I think there's crossover Doctor Who Star Trek comics, and Star Trek has a crossover with there was a Star Trek crossover with some other sci-fi show that was set contemporaneously at the
Right.
time, and that had a crossover with one of the shows that's like
Right.
connected to it.
Okay.
I think that's the connection. So it is like a little bit tenuous, but it's like yeah, it's So what I'm saying is that all of Michael Moorcock's work is also is inside Tommy Westphall's head. Is I think what I'm saying there.
Okay. Interestingly, I read a little story recently that was in a Moorcock anthology of non-Moorcock written, but
Mm.
Moorcock universe set stories. So it featured Elric, but it also featured Conrad from the Games Workshop Conrad novels, which does mean that the Warhammer world that Conrad is in is also in the Moorcock multiverse. So
Mm.
Warhammer, which was also connected to 40k. So 40k, Warhammer Fantasy, Age of Sigmar, they are all also now connected to that. So I think
Yep.
we've solved a lot, I think, with this little random
Yeah. Yeah. No.
tangent.
it is all part of the same thing. And if you, it is those things where you go, the Tommy Westphal universe thing is very definitely the behavior of people who were destined in another lifetime to become YouTubers. Um, and do this kind of stuff all the time and have a healthy outlet for it, but instead they got really obsessed and created these elaborate wikis of like what everything was connected. Because I think it all started like back on like Usenet and things like that. So
Sure, yeah, there's
like way
a
back,
long legacy, I think, for that
yeah.
one. Well, just bringing it back around to the
Yes.
final, because I've got a very awkward segue, but it's
Mm.
the opening scene of the final program, which is the funeral of Jerry Cornelius's father, that takes place in Lapland in this really sort of austere landscape, and
Yes.
you get and like Jerry is walking to the funeral, and there's just these very long, quiet shots, barely any noise at all, of him just walking along this like deserted Lapland horizon
Until the brass band starts.
until the brass band, and there's also a helicopter as well, and it put me in mind a little bit,
Mm.
very tiny little bit of the opening of The Thing, which is,
Yes.
a helicopter flying across the Antarctic horizon. Obviously, very, very different movie, very, very different events going on, but both really interesting openings that kind of set an interesting tone.
Both set in this very bleak, like,
Yeah,
environment.
yeah, just like desolate in the sense that it's untouched, right?
Yeah,
Apart from the helicopter and the person, there's nothing man-made in that space. It's all a
yeah.
natural space. Yeah, but the thing. So there's 1982 version of the thing.
John Carpenter's The
John
Thing.
Carpenter's the thing. That's right. This is the movie that you wanted us to watch
Yes.
for the double bill. What prompted like what? Why did you want to bring it in?
Okay, so John Carpenter's The Thing is, most notorious for its practical effects of the mutating thing, the
Hmm.
creature, the alien. Um, Plural, I guess. There are multiple. And basically, in my head, when I read about chaos mutation, uh, like the flesh change of the thousand suns and things, the style of it's what I see in my head is what happens in the thing. That is what I see every time. That is like the flesh ripping apart, mutating, like erupting things that aren't supposed to be. It being things being made of like distorted versions of an existing thing.
Hmm.
That's what I interpret, and obviously someone at Games Workshop did as well, because there is an explicit reference to the thing on the I think it's early 2000s. It was released. Chaos mutation upgrade sprue that came with the Fantasy Chaos Warriors and the Chaos Space Marine
Right.
kit, because one of the heads on it is the two heads like morphed together and like ripping themselves apart.
Right, right,
Um, that is pretty nakedly modeled on the corpse that they find at the Norwegian camp
right.
in the thing. So obviously, I'm not the only person to have made that connection, because
Yeah.
that is a pretty, like, yeah, that is just that.
I think
It's
also the miniatures that most closely resemble it in my head are the Gelapox from the Kill
mm,
Team Rogue Trader box,
yeah.
where it's like they're Nurgle, but there's a load of like weird mutations and
Mm.
physical mutations in those guys as well that
I,
feel very the thing to me.
the Chaos Spawn minis, when whichever ones you're looking at,
Sure,
also
yes, yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
pretty much some of those feel very very inspired by
I
the
think you're
thing.
right. Yeah.
And yeah, so that's always. I will also say like a more tenuous one, but like all sci-fis are all. There's a few things that all sci-fis want to do at some point. Um, One is weirdly create a race that has sex slavery. Don't quite understand why they all want to do
Hmm.
that. But one of the other ones is they want to do an episode where they do the thing.
Yep.
Um, the example that always comes to mind is it's an episode of DS9 where one of them's a changeling.
Right.
And that paranoia of one people aren't what they seem. That is an element of the whole Gene Stealer cults thing.
Yes.
That also I always think of that type of story. Though obviously the Gene Stealer cults thing's got a lot going on. There's right down to trade unions and all sorts. Gene Stealer cults are a really interesting faction thematically. It has to be said. But yeah, I think there's that element too. But it is mostly for me. It's the mutation. That's like
Sure.
the thing very much established how I think about that.
Yeah.
And it is because again I said earlier I'm a sci-fi guy more than anything else, and so I'm not really hugely into horror as a
Right.
general rule. But when I do horror, when I really enjoy it, it's usually a sci-fi horror. So it's usually a toss-up of my favorite horror film, either being John Carpenter's The Thing or Alien,
Right. Sure.
which I think is that kind of covers kind of both ends of that kind of
Yeah, I
thing.
think
One being
so.
a bit more explicitly sci-fi, and one just being an alien in the present day of 1982.
Sure. And both having I think they have both influenced Warhammer or the creators behind Warhammer in many,
Mm,
many ways. But the thing should we talk about the story of the thing then? So it's very,
yeah.
very simple, really, right?
Mm,
It is this Antarctic research station, a load of American, well, not necessarily scientists, but they're there for research purposes.
just dudes.
Just dudes, yeah. And their peace is interrupted by the arrival of a couple of Norwegian guys in a helicopter who are chasing a dog and trying to
Mm.
kill it. They both get killed or die. One accidentally drops a grenade into
In a
the
real
sky.
Looney Tunes
Yeah,
death, it has to be
it's
said.
very, very slapstick. The other one is killed because he's running around with a gun and he's shooting. So the Americans kill him. But it turns out that they had wanted to get the dog because the
Mm,
dog is actually not a real dog. It is an
mm,
alien that they have defrosted from the ice that has killed everyone in their
mm,
camp already and will now, through mutation and essentially mimicking other people, it will take
mm,
over and kill everybody in the camp and then presumably the world. So you then get this super paranoid, basically takes place over probably less than 24 hours of
mm,
now who has been already taken over by the thing. So then they have been killed and replaced. There's this intense paranoia. They don't know what it is. They don't know how to
mm,
fight it. They don't know who is who is still who they claim to be. And you get the breakdown of order. And there's still actually quite a lot of like you do still get people working together. It's not like everyone suddenly just kills each other. They are
yeah.
still trying to work together to defeat this like terrible enemy,
Mm.
but they're doing so with very tough odds, I suppose, right?
Yeah, because they're like I mentioned earlier, like the movie doesn't tell you things, and it's sort of to its credit.
Yeah.
Like the rules are very of this alien entity and like what it's doing and how it's doing it are very elastic
Mm,
in the movie. Sometimes it takes someone over very quickly. Sometimes it spreads to another person as opposed to create it to take it like because sometimes it's like oh it just like its previous version takes just assumes the next person,
mm,
and other times it multiplies. It seems to sort of vary, and there's no real hard and fast rule about how it's working. And I think that works well because it means that you, as the audience, do not know what's going to happen.
yeah.
You don't know what the rules are because the characters in the movie don't know what the rules are, and it's like I was thinking about it after watching it. By the way, it is a pretty scary movie. Not a good movie to watch when you realize you forgot to take the bins out at midnight. And so you need to go take the bins out around the dark alley down the side of your house. Just put that out
Yeah.
there. But like this alien entity that is taking people over, it is obviously of at least human level intelligence because it is
Yes.
able to imitate a human and lie. So it's not a pure instinctual animal. And it obviously absorbs like their memories, so it's able to lie effectively.
Mm,
So there's something going on there. But also it like, because the obvious thing is if it's got human level intelligence, is to just like take over a guy and then just stay like that until it can get picked up
Yeah.
later and then spread to the rest of the world. That would be the sensible thing. But it's like it's instinctual. It can't help itself
Mm.
to take more people over, to absolutely decimate the camp. It's like a like virus, and
Yeah.
it does spread from like cell to cell. Like you see it like basically takes over a cell, absorbs it, and then turns itself into a perfect copy of it.
Yeah.
So it is like a virus that's a whole entity. And it's you know, that's like a really, the fact that like its motives beyond self-replication are completely like, you don't it though the thing speaks several times because it's disguised as people,
Yeah.
you never get a perspective from it about what it's doing,
Sure.
or why it's doing anything, because there's obvious ways it could do it more efficiently, but it obviously can't stop itself.
Yeah.
And I think
Because
that's
even
interesting.
theoretically, it's like framing people and stuff like
Yeah.
that, and like
it,
getting people to turn against one another.
Yeah. Even if you say when it takes someone over and replicates them, it like replicates their thoughts, so it can like, so it's not necessarily, so say it's not necessarily got like human level intelligence, but it like assumes it almost when
Mm.
it's disguised as a human. Even if you go by that kind of route, the fact that it does things like sets up ruses and does things surreptitiously means that it has to be very intelligent
Yeah.
to do that.
It's got a spaceship as well. It arrived on a spaceship we see in the
Yeah,
opening like prologue.
that is the one thing I don't like about the movie, I will say,
Right.
is I don't like that you see a flying saucer at the very start of the movie fly into Earth,
Right.
and where it obviously crashes, which I think, I can't remember how it's like 100 million years ago that's supposed to have happened,
Yeah,
because
I
it
think a
says it's
lot
been in NASA. Yeah.
prehistory, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't like that because I think the movie would be stronger if you find out about the flying saucer like halfway through the movie when the characters do. So
Right.
you don't know, because basically it tells you from the very beginning this is an alien movie.
Hmm.
And I think it would work better if you didn't see that. It's like the first time I saw the first Predator, I missed the first few minutes. So I missed the bit where you see a spaceship.
Right.
So even though I knew Predator what it was, I knew of it from pop culture. Like I kind of got to see it in like the optimal way, where it's an action movie that then becomes an alien movie,
Sure.
with a little bit more mystery about where this thing came from, because I knew the Predator existed, but I didn't really know what it was.
Mm.
And I think if that had been done, I think it would be a little. I think it would make, like, just removing like 10 seconds off the start of the movie, I think would make it a little better.
So I don't mind that. I think to me it's sort of whether or not it's some natural thing, whether or not it's a
Mm.
reveal that it's an alien, like I'm quite happy because essentially it's only an incidental detail, really,
Yeah,
isn't
yeah,
it? Because
yeah.
it spends a tiny amount of time, like it seems to be trying to build a spacecraft or some sort of vehicle, which is I
Yeah, it
thought was
takes over
fun.
Wilford Brimley to make
Yes, yeah.
a mini flying saucer in record time.
Yes, it does very, very quickly. But I quite liked because actually, when in terms of the paranoia and all that, and the fact that it withholds information from us, we know at the end of the movie that Wilford Brimley has been taken over by the
Mm.
thing. But earlier in the movie, when he's acting erratically, he still seems to be human, but you don't know for sure. So there's like
Yeah,
there's a it happens to he at some point gets assimilated, but you can't actually place it in the movie because you see him again in the
mm.
intervening scenes. So things like that I think are great because you can then endlessly speculate on, oh, well, in
Yeah.
this scene, was he still a human or was he a thing by
Mm.
now? And
It's a
that's quite
great
cool.
it's a great movie to theorize about.
Yes.
Like people say of the ending when McCready and I basically forget every character's name apart from McCready.
Childs, I
Even though
think.
I love the movie, I always forget all their names. But it's the character played by Keith David,
Yeah,
who's
Childs.
the yeah, Charles. And it's the two of them at the end, and people often point out that you can see McCready's breath,
Ah,
but you can't see Childs's breath, which kind of insinuates that he's probably a thing. Um, which is an interesting observation.
hmm.
I don't know if that's intentional or if it's just the
Isn't that the
shoots
question as well,
look like
right?
that.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. Like because again, there's so many mysteries in the movie. There's so many things that you don't know, and are not communicated when things happen, how long someone who turns into one of these creatures is that.
Hmm.
Because obviously some of them we just see. But some of them, it's like, yeah, when did Wilford Brimley become a thing? You know, we
Sure.
don't know exactly. Like, because it seems because he initially has an outburst and he destroys like the communication equipment and the helicopter's like control panel, and it appears because he figured out what these things do,
Hmm.
and he's like, we can't let these get out. Basically, we need to die here. This is the only answer.
Yeah.
And so it seems like that's what he's doing. But also, he could have been taken over at that point and is using it as a ruse.
Yeah.
I think it's the former, personally.
I do as well, but like the
But it
fact
could
that he
be.
then uses those pieces of technology that like human
Mm,
Wilford Brimley ripped out of the helicopter, he's then using them as thing
yeah.
Wilford Brimley to build his little
Mm,
spaceship. So, what is it just a happy accident or he's
yeah.
making, but I guess the thing is so in like it is a very good like it literally adapts, doesn't it? Right? It's always
Mm,
responding to what's happening and trying to find the best way to deal with it. I mean, what a particular example is because it's very difficult to know when a thing is dead, but
yeah.
there is one character who has like a heart attack,
Yeah.
and we've seen him struggling with his. It seemed like he was sort of having the early stages of a heart attack throughout,
Yeah.
and then the stress brings it on, and then the doctor is trying to defibrillate him, and
Mm,
then the chest opens up, and it's actually been a thing the whole time.
yeah.
So
When
like,
did he change?
yeah, when did he change? Right?
Yeah.
Did he change? Was he already a thing and he was sort of
Mm,
pretending to have a heart condition? Did the thing accidentally recreate the heart condition?
mm,
What's going on there?
yeah.
Whatever the reason, probably the real reason is because it's an incredible scene and the
Yes.
special effects are amazing because the doctor does the press, the
Yeah.
chest opens up, and then obviously his hand goes into a
Yeah.
mouth now, and then it
Yes.
bites his arms off, and it's
Yeah.
brutal.
They used the for the shot where you see him raise his arms up. There's actually like a stunt double there who does just have no arms. Like
Right.
that's how they
And
did
then
that.
when they actually did like clamp onto the arms with
Well,
the
no, I think
special effect.
that's just guy. But like when you see him raise his arms
Oh,
up,
right, I
if I
got you.
remember
Right,
correctly, like they just cast a guy for
right,
that bit that they could
right,
like 'cause
right.
his face is kind of obscured at that point. That yeah, he just is
And
not got
because
both
a
his
lot
arms.
of the special, I mean, I think in fact all the special effects. Well, yeah, it's all practical stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's
It's
all like it's
so good.
1982, so it all had to be practical. There's a few, all of it's like on set, apart from a couple of bits, as far as I'm aware. Obviously, there's a spaceship thing.
Do some
That's
model
obviously
work here and there, I
some model
guess, right?
work here and there, but like for the most part, when it's all the creature effects are
Yeah,
all either on set or there's a couple that are towards the end that are a bit of stop motion tentacle work,
sure. Right, yes.
which are probably the worst special effects
And
in
they
it, but
are
also
they stand
I
out.
love
Right.
because I love
Well,
stop motion.
he's charming now, right, for
Yeah,
sure. And I'm sure it worked more effectively,
yeah.
in an earlier era. But I
I
think all
mean,
the practical effects are still really, really strong.
they did some really smart things. The movie uses light really well.
Yeah.
So most of it is like whenever you see a thing and it's like going through its full mutating, like things, arms ripping out, mouths opening up. It's always shown in dark, like there's always like just like a source of light in the room, so it's covered in shadows.
Mhm.
Like the initial time you see it when the dog by the way, the dog was a I forget its name, but it was a dog that was in multiple movies, and it's
Right.
a Malamute wolf cross because it's a very good boy. And they lived to be like 17, so that dog lived a long life, and that makes me
Oh,
happy
good.
because they are such an adorable dog.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful dogs.
Beautiful, beautiful creature. I love dogs, so you know. But when it initially does the thing of spreading open, which is weird, it's like one of my favorite horror movies, and like it opens with attempted dog murder and ends with multiple dog
Yeah,
murders.
it does.
As it like rips open in the kennel and like starts trying to eat the other dogs. And that's all shot. There's like very little light in that scene,
Mm.
so you see everything in heavy shadow. So it covers up the slightly goofy effects. Like when you see it in flat light, if you saw it in like complete flat light,
Yeah.
these effects would not hold up as well as they do. I think the only effect, apart from the stop motion, but again, I think is adorable and I love. But the only effect I think that doesn't kind of hold up is when they do the classic blood testing scene.
Right.
And the thing reveals itself, and its head opens up, and it eats another guy's head, and then it like lifts the guy up, and then it's very obviously just a mannequin kind of flailing around on top. It just That's like the only special effect that I think kind of looks a bit naff.
Sure.
I think the rest of them look amazing, even to this day. Like even though you can see how they're done, you
Yeah.
can like the practical effects and again how they light them
Mm.
to use tone, and also they don't overuse them either.
No, they don't.
They tend to be very short, intense
Yeah.
scenes where they happen, and then the rest of the time is filled with intense paranoia.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
everyone has a buildup of tension, and even I mentioned the blood testing scene. Like that is like a masterwork of how to do a scene like that. Because for if you haven't seen it, watch the thing with the 1982 thing. You can watch the original that it's a remake of, which but although I've never done actually, I really should do that. The thing
Oh, it's
from outer
worth a
space.
watch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I keep meaning to do. I actually would have done it for this, but I remembered that as the movie ended when I was watching it last night, like midnight. I was like, I'm not going to have a chance to watch it tomorrow morning. So, yeah. And is not done well in the pseudo remake kind of
Sure.
prequel
Yeah.
thing from I think 2011, which is not very good.
No.
But watch John Carpenter's The Thing. It's great. Um, but these sort of like short, intense sequences that are done with this heavy lighting, with this very intense kind of thing. Yeah, it's just I don't know. It knows how to use the paranoia of the scenes and
Mm.
like that was what I was talking about, the blood testing scene.
Yeah.
The blood testing scene. So they are testing everyone. They're cutting people's finger, which I think says a lot about me. That all of the intense stuff doesn't freak me out, but watching people cut a scalpel across a thumb and bleed, I'm like, "Ugh."
Yeah. You're not going to be able to grip with that hand for weeks.
Yeah. I think it's the thing. That's a it's why I like the whole like violence in movies, video games thing. The conversation's always a little bit less than helpful when a lot of people have it,
Mm.
because it's like, no, that's realistic, like
It's
injury.
relatable. Yeah.
That's a relatable injury. That's something that can happen. In real life, people don't erupt into multi-armed creatures of eldritch intent.
Yet.
That's not a real thing that happens, so that gore doesn't affect me. But cutting your thumb, oh, I've done that. Yes. But yeah, so they cut people's thumb to get some blood, and then they heat up a piece of wire and put it in there because they're like, we think that every part of these things is alive.
Mm.
So like blood won't react to being, touched with superheated, like heated up wire because it's just cells. It's not going to do anything. But I reckon this stuff, if you hit it, it's going to try and protect itself because we've seen it like split into parts and each part's sort of independent. So I reckon that's going to happen.
Mm.
And they're going through them and like revealing people are fine. It's a big intense scene as like, the build up to each one being tested. And then sort of he starts doing one incidentally as he's talking. And then that's the one that it is. So like he gets interrupted by the blood erupting out of it.
Yeah.
And it's like that's a masterwork because it hits exactly when you aren't expecting it. It's not the big build up and you're braced for it.
Yeah.
It's like you're not ready for that to happen as an audience member. Neither are the characters either. And that's like
Yeah.
a masterwork of how to do that scene.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's so many of those amazing, like just really well conceived and executed. But like going back to the dogs scene, because that is so well done and is so
Mm.
intense. And a big part of the intensity comes from, yes, the special effects are amazing. I mean, it's actually a bit when the skin on the head sort of splays out and then the skull
Feels like
just
a
falls
banana.
off. Yes, it does. Yeah, and it's horror, absolutely horrifying.
Yeah.
But it's the reactions to it as well, because you
Mm.
have the dogs that are all panicking, and then the humans are all coming in and running and seeing it.
Mm.
Like all of that sells it incredibly well. And I actually quite like that that's super early as well. Obviously, for the structure of the movie, you need to have
Yeah.
the paranoia early on.
Mm. I mean, it's
But they
still
don't.
like half an hour into the movie. It's not actually like
It
that soon.
is.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, and they've done loads of great establishing work, but you don't like they didn't save it for one big final reveal. Like you
Mm.
get a really good special effects horrifying scene like early enough to say so everybody knows what they're dealing with. Like, there's no one
Yeah.
that has to be convinced after this. They're all on
Yeah.
the same page of, oh no, this is really bad, actually.
They're all aware of the stakes.
Yeah, exactly. And then that introduces the paranoia element.
Mm.
And I suppose we should mention the score as well, like the Ennio Morricone's score, which is just sublime, just
It's also fairly minimal throughout the movie,
really
which I
minimal.
think works well. It's like I had a moment where I was like, how often does the music actually show up? Because obviously in the intro, and I'm like, yeah, actually, it only shows up a couple of times
Yeah.
throughout the movie, like in sort of a few scenes, but most of the time you're left with silence. And
Mm.
again, that does help with the paranoia. It allows the scenes to sort of speak for themselves, as it
Yeah.
were.
And you're there with them. You're not watching a
And you're there with
movie.
them.
You've not got
It
this
makes,
external
yeah,
thing.
and because you've got this, because I think one of the things that works well is because it's obviously an isolated situation and the establishing shots of the movie, sort of, well, establishing shots, the early scenes, sort of establish that all these people, they have their own interpersonal, like, friendships and grievances.
Yes.
Like some of them are sniping at each other constantly, and you can tell that it's beyond just good natured. Like they actually actively dislike each
Yeah.
other, but they're stuck together, so they work together.
Yeah.
And so and so it sort of allows it to play off that as well. Like there's some things in there where you can tell that some of them are maybe a little bit harsher to some because they don't like them, and a bit kinder to others because they already like them.
Mm.
And there's like I think there's it's yeah, and again underscored by the often lack of score.
Yeah. Yeah.
'Cause
Yeah.
it makes it a very personal thing. It makes it less hyper real. It's more just
Yeah. It's really well
grounded.
observed. Yeah. All of that stuff with like you say, the interpersonal
Mm.
dynamics, like it's very realistic. It is very much a
Mm.
workplace. These people, like, there's friction because they're just too different. They just don't like each other because
Yeah,
they see the world very differently and behave differently. But yeah, like you say, they're also professionals. If the thing hadn't turned up, it's not like everyone would have broke out into fighting. They would have done their
yeah,
jobs and just not liked each other. But now that the thing is there, it kind of the pre-existing relationships then play a role in the paranoia and like who
yeah.
trusts whom, and that there's like a real sadness almost when it seems like McCready, who everyone seems to respect from the off,
Mm.
when it turns out, or when they think that he's been taken by the thing
Mm.
because the thing is framing him.
Yeah.
Then that there's like, there's a clearly like, oh well, who's going to lead us now, sort of thing.
Yeah. Because the actual guy in charge basically surrenders being in charge because he's like, oh man, ooh, no, I can't do this. And even though at no point is it McCready's in charge now, McCready's in charge
Yeah.
because he's like the kind of most level-headed person there.
Yes.
Even though he loses it several times because it's an intense
And,
situation,
and even before, one of the earliest examples of video game rage quitting, when he's playing
Yes.
chess on his little Chessmaster computer, and then he's just so annoyed that he pours a scotch into the motherboard and destroys it.
He
Um,
destroys the abominable intelligence.
yeah, exactly. Which I think is, I mean, obviously is a great, because that happens super early on.
Yeah.
That is also the exam. That's the end of the movie, right? That is,
Yeah.
it's checkmate. You have lost. Well, then I'll just destroy the game then. And that is
Yeah.
what McCready does at the end of the
He
movie.
he he's he is a natural board flipper. Like
Yeah,
he is like, oh no, 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 no. I'm not here to win. I'm here to make sure you lose.
exactly that. Yeah, exactly. Which ultimately, as Wilford Brimley had said
Mm.
much earlier on, that's the only way this ends. Is
Yeah.
either it gets away or we get away. Oh, sorry, it
Yeah.
gets away or we kill it, and that is the
Yeah.
only end. There's no us surviving it. Um, yeah, you mentioned the other. There's a couple of different sort of related media. There's the earlier '50s adaptation because it's from a
Mm.
short story.
Mm.
I think the short story is Who Goes There, or something like that. And then
Mm.
the thing from another world is the '50s movie,
Yeah.
which is great. It's actually also still holds up, I think, but it takes it in a very sort of '50s like, kind of macho kind of way. So
Mm.
all of the army, it's an army base rather than a research base, and
Yeah.
all of the army men they're all like, well, we'll do it together and we'll take care of this thing. And it's a bit more. There's still some really cool scenes in it and some
Mm.
cool stuff, but it's obviously not played for the intense, horrific paranoia that this movie.
A less cynical movie.
Yeah, exactly that, exactly that. And then there's the video game that was suggested to be a direct sequel. Did you ever play that?
I didn't, although, funnily enough, the DVD copy of the thing that I have doesn't have the cover
Oh
of the
no!
actual thing on it. It's got the cover that was used on the video game for some
Oh
reason,
no! And
which is much worse.
much worse because the actual thing poster with the sort of it's a guy in the full like snow
Like
gear,
snowsuit.
yeah, snowsuit. Man is the warmest place to hide.
Yeah.
Incredible tagline, right? Absolutely
Mm.
incredible. Yeah, the video game starts is you are a sort of second team who have come to the US research base in order
Mm.
to investigate what's happened to everybody there. And you don't, I think you find Child's body, but you don't find McCready's body. So then there's the
Mm.
suggestion of is McCready still around somewhere. I only played probably 20 minutes of it because
Yeah.
it wasn't very good.
I believe I believe McCready does show up because I have a memory of watching a video where I saw someone talking about it and there was the character in McCready's dorky hat. So I'm pretty sure McCready is in that.
Yeah, and then there's that was it 2011
I think it's
sort of
2011.
prequel essentially that purports to show what happened at the Norwegian base, um,
Yeah.
but actually has a lot of Americans in it still.
Yeah. It's not very good.
It's a bit
Um,
too the same beats with worse special effects, in my opinion.
it's like I know one of the interesting things about it is that it was going to be a much better movie because they did do it with actual practical effects.
Right.
And the studio said, no, do it all with CGI. So they redid it with CGI, and then everyone hated the CGI special effects. I think it suffers from the problem a lot of things do, where they go, X was popular. How about we just do that again?
Mm.
And you end up creating something that is just a worse version of a thing that already exists. And so the Thing 2011, also just calling it the Thing when it's a prequel.
Unforgivable. I can't.
Yeah.
Media that uses the same name as a pre-existing thing in the same franchise is unacceptable to me because it's you can't Google it besides anything else.
As
Outrageous.
as people into Warhammer, we cannot throw stones in this this avenue. But what do you mean by Horus Heresy? Do you mean which game? There's like four of them. Um, but there is the it. So an interesting thing is like I said about both these movies being unpredictable, and like recently I watched Alien Romulus, which a lot of people seem to quite like,
Hmm.
and I was very frustrated by because
Right.
that is a movie that so the first 10 minutes basically before the credits roll, wonderful. It absolutely captures the vibe of the original Alien, in a way that all the sequels haven't. Because it feels like again that retrofuturism thing, but it actually captures the retrofuturism of Alien
Sure.
like spot on in the tone, perfect.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the movie feels like you took a large language model and fed it all of the scripts to every Alien movie, and then the averaged out Alien movie that it gave back to you was what you made.
Right.
Every single factor of the movie is predictable if you've watched another Alien movie.
Mm.
Oh, there's a pregnant character, so we're getting an alien human hybrid
Mm.
story. We've done this multiple times. And yeah, that is just and that whole movie is like that. It's like if you've watched the other movies, you know exactly what's going to happen. And so I
Yeah.
was like, look, I can acknowledge that you can enjoy this movie, but like I get nothing out of it. I could just watch the other movies that do the individual elements it is you doing better.
Yeah. So I
Um,
don't disagree with that. Like anything you've said there, I think is a
mhm,
very legitimate description of Alien Romulus. However, I still found myself like I enjoyed it well enough. It sort of ticked enough
mhm.
of my very easily ticked nostalgia boxes for it to probably be my fourth favorite Alien movie.
I mean, to be fair, there's been a lot of bad Alien
There's a lot
movies,
of
so
bad ones, yeah. So I
Like,
will take average. That is
yeah,
fine by me.
I mean, you know what? That is fair. That is fair. It's not like Alien Romulus ruined the Alien franchise. That happened decades ago. Um, it's like sitting there and going like, "Oh, I watched a modern Simpsons episode the other day and it wasn't very good." Yeah, that happened. Simpsons became bad decades ago. What that you're not saying anything original there.
Yeah.
But I thought like specifically like that, and I think the thing 2011 or wherever when it came
Hmm.
out,
Yeah.
that has a similar kind of issue of that it's it's a prequel, so you know where it ends up anyway, which is a prequel problem anyway, but a good prequel can mitigate that by doing unpredictable things. Or
Theoretically, I think that's true.
yeah,
I don't think there's many examples of that
yeah,
myself.
or
But
at
yeah.
least it can tell the story in an engaging way,
Sure.
and or being a good example
Okay,
of
yeah,
a
fair enough.
prequel that tells the story interestingly.
I suppose that's because it's telling its own story
Yeah,
that is relevant to the
yeah,
original story, whereas the thing like prequel is is telling the same story
yeah,
that is only relevant by way of we have already seen the important section of it at the start
yeah.
of the movie The Thing.
There's like the bit where someone puts an axe in a door and they're like, no, don't move it. And there's no reason in universe for them to do that. But out of universe, you're like, well, that's because there's an axe in the door in the Norwegian base and the thing.
Yeah,
It's got to be there. We've got to do that scene.
yeah,
And it's like, because, and so it's the same beats, but worse.
yes, yeah.
And I think like the difference between The Thing and the Alien series is that the Alien series has had a lot of bad movies in it at this point and bad adaptations
Mm.
and comics and video games. Like, you can't have colonial marines in your franchise and be the worst thing of the franchise. Like, you're safe in that kind of thing. Whereas The Thing is this, like, obviously there's the original short story and the movie, the 50s movie, but they're a separate entity. Everything post the John Carpenter movie has been in that universe.
Mm.
And The Thing is so good as a standalone story that everything that tries to flesh it out is, so far anyway, I do not doubt the infinite creativity of people to create good versions of old stories. That is what we do as a species at the end of the day.
Mhm.
But so far, we've had a couple of attempts, and each one of them has just kind of told the same story but worse.
Yeah.
And I feel like at a certain point, you just have to accept that, like, okay, you made one really good movie. If you want to do a new version of it, you have to do a new thing.
Mm.
Literally, you have to make a new the thing. Um, you have to do it with its own verve. You can't be imitating what had come previously. You've got to do it. Much like we're talking about how Warhammer itself borrows from so much, and some of the earlier stuff does just nakedly take it and then just do it itself.
Yeah.
And then over time, when, oh, we probably shouldn't do that, and then they put their own spin on it, and it became its own thing.
Yeah.
I think too many like that's kind of what you have to do if you want to make a new Thing movie,
Yeah.
is to actually do something different, because if you are just making a remake of the original, you've got to be, if not as good as it, you've got to tell a subversion of that story in a way that's
Yeah.
interesting enough to warrant its existence, because the movie already exists. Why do you want to make why do you want to make something that already exists? Don't you want to make something new?
Yeah, because I
Like,
mean, the thing, like the thing itself, like a good franchise becomes more than the sum of its parts. It might
yeah,
replicate something before it, but then adds its own, horrifying alien presence to it in order to make it into a multi-headed beast. So that is
yeah,
when, things get really good and really interesting. If you do just copy it as an inferior version, then that's kind of like it is boring. And besides anything
yeah.
else, it doesn't add any new value. So there's nothing to it. So yeah, I think the original, John Carpenter's The Thing, and is such Like it's iconic for a reason. I think it
Mm,
still stands up. It's still an
mm,
expert exploration of paranoia, and
mm.
the special effects are still incredible. It's highly recommended. I mean, arguably
Yeah.
one of the best sci-fi films, arguably one of the best horror films, arguably one of the best films. I would go so far as to say, right?
Yeah, like I say, between that and Alien, I struggle to think of what is my favorite horror film.
Which is very understandable.
Yeah, and it just depends on what day you ask me, frankly.
Yeah.
I think like the cool thing about the movie is though it is known for its gore, for its special effects, for this like these intense like horrifying mutated things happening. On some level, most of the movie you could though like you could arguably make a version of that movie with nearly the same script where people just disappear
Hmm.
and there's no gore to it. Um and you only see the aftermath of it. And I think the movie would still work
Yeah.
as this paranoid thrill, like sci-fi thriller. Like you could definitely still make it work, and I think that's what means that it doesn't just become like there's plenty of movies that are just a gore fest,
Yeah.
and the point is the gore. Or at the very least, that's what people are showing up for. It's that kind of
Sure.
thing, and I love plenty of movies like that. Like, there's no judgment here about that. But this is one that has it, but it's not necessary. It's just a thing that heightens it. And I
Yes.
think that's not many movies can claim to do that. And I think that's also one of the problems that remake like the 2011 thing has that problem as well of the it's not able to it is a bit more about hey look at the gory special effects because that's what the thing is about, isn't it? It's about the big gory thing, as opposed to what to me the story is. It's about
Yeah.
paranoia.
Yeah, it's a human
It's
story.
a human
It's about the
story. Yeah.
humans. It's not about the thing.
Mm.
Obviously, there is a big draw to that, but like you say, you could remove a lot of that special effects work. I'd rather they didn't, but you could,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it would still be great.
yeah,
Whereas if you just go, oh well, it's only about that, then you're really missing the point.
yeah.
Which,
It's elevated by the gore
yeah,
rather than tied to it
sure,
as a thing. I will say just one little thing that's just a personal little thing that I hadn't noticed because the last time I watched it, I hadn't got quite the same brain weasels that I do now. Um, so I noticed that one of the characters name drops the book Chariots of the Gods in it.
right,
Now, Chariots of the Gods is a book that I have unfortunately read. And that is written by I think he's Swiss guy called Eric von Daniken. You may know this work better as the series Ancient Aliens, which is all based on Eric von Daniken's work of
right,
ancient astronauts, of ancient aliens coming to Earth and affecting our things, which is mostly just a way of saying of people going, I don't think that people who aren't white can build big buildings, is basically what ancient alien theory is.
right,
Um, uh, but um, but yeah, it was kind of a bit of a popular thing around the 70s.
right.
So it was interesting to see that drop because obviously I've read
That's
the book now.
fascinating,
It's
right,
terrible. It's a terrible book written by a bad person.
right.
Um, but if you're interested in like conspiracy theories and things,
Because
it's kind of
that's
it's an interesting little nod because because in this universe, yeah, aliens did crash land
sure,
on Earth in Earth's past. That is a thing that has happened.
right.
So in that way, in that universe, Eric von Daniken is not completely wrong about everything like he is in the real world. He's merely wrong about everything but one fact.
Right.
Um, which is
Yeah,
interesting.
that's
I found.
fascinating. Yeah, because isn't that I guess is the kind of stuff Ridley Scott is riffing on with his like Prometheus prequel
Yeah,
to Alien as well.
yeah.
So
It
it kind
shows
of
up
comes
all
up
over
again.
the impact of ancient alien theory is remarkable throughout pop culture. Weirdly shows up in Transformers a lot.
Right.
Well, the whole plot of the original series is they crash land on Earth into Mount Saint Hilary. Um, and they crash land into that millions of years ago. And so there has been literal aliens on Earth for millions of years,
I didn't
and we
know
didn't
that.
know about it. and several further things. You know, both the Cyberverse cartoon, one of the movies, I think it's Revenge of the Fallen. I try to forget the Michael Bay movies; they're not very good. But they have like ancient Cybertronian artifacts in the pyramids, and
Okay.
ancient alien theory is fascinated with Egypt because they have never properly read a history book even once. They just skimmed it and took the parts that they liked.
Right.
Um, in case you can't tell, I have a great derision for ancient astronaut theory. It's very silly and it has some very unsavory
Hmm.
origin points. But it's interesting how these things do show up in all sorts of places, and yeah, like it shows that it's just a little name check. But I was like, that's really interesting that that shows up in there.
That is fascinating. Yeah, I didn't know
Because yeah,
that.
it was a bit more, though we know it by ancient aliens now, because that's the most popular adaptation of it. There was a movie version of Chariots of the Gods,
Right.
which because obviously it's a non-fiction book. Well, okay, it is a fiction book because nothing in it is true, but it's supposed to be a non-fiction book,
Right.
and they adapted it into like a feature-length documentary in the 70s sometime. So yeah, it did have some like pop culture relevance back then
It's
as
very
well. So
similar to the is it Holy Blood, Holy Grail, like that? I don't know if that was the name of the book, but like all of that Holy Grail sort of
oh
stuff
yeah
that
yeah
the
yeah
Da Vinci Code is based on. It
yeah
became like
yeah
a very
yeah
popular quote unquote non-fiction sort of
yeah
pop psychology kind of weird thing that
yeah
then
it's
influenced loads of other stuff as a result.
yeah, this is the thing. Like these weird theories, the Eternals. If you forget the terrible movie, and most people have forgotten it,
Yeah.
that is it's Jack Kirby, I think, came up with it, and he was heavily influenced by ancient astronaut theory for that as well. So
Right.
that's because again, that's ancient aliens coming to Earth,
Sure.
affecting mankind throughout the ages.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's funny, much like the Thing. Ancient astronaut theory has tendrils that reach out and infect things, and quite often in entirely benign ways because it's being treated as the silly, not true thing it is. But also, it does also have
Sure. As a lot
nefarious
of
things.
these things can do, right? It's
Conspiracy theories,
yeah.
as fun as they can be to theorize about, they do all have like they do all have sinister roots. And I won't go into it because it's a very depressing subject. But they all go back to the same basic like
Sure.
protocols, the Elders of Zion stuff. Like at the end of the
Yeah.
day, they all inevitably end back at that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And it doesn't. Once you know about that, it makes them less fun, I will say. But
Yeah, not yeah, I get you totally. Yeah, and it's yeah, the dangers of this kind of stuff generally, isn't it? But I think conscious that we've been talking at length about a couple of great
yes.
movies. I mean, I've had terrific fun, but I don't want to take your entire the rest of your life just talking about movies and stuff. So
It's completely fine. One of the downsides of being very of having some very definite subjects that you talk about like on your like your platform
mm.
means that you sometimes don't get to talk at length about other subjects that you have some passion for. And so I absolutely grab with both hands every opportunity to talk about these various other bits and pieces that influence not only like culture in general, but us. Like we bring it like the whole theme is think something that um I you asked like something that influences your perception of Warhammer
Yeah.
in one form or another that you have a connection to, and that's going to be unique to each person because I so someone could come to you and go, I'm going to bring a Fred Astaire movie because that one person did that Wraith Lord custom that was in White Dwarf that was Fred Astaire. You
Yes.
know, someone could do that, and it's the little connections we form, and like how we've spun off and talked about a few other little topics here and there because it's all connected, and I think it's always interesting to talk about that.
Yeah, well, I agree, and I think it's genuinely fascinating to see like how these things intersect because yeah, these are different hobbies and different passions, but they do cross over and they do influence one another, and yeah, it's really fun. So thank you
Hmm.
so much, Whip, for joining me. It's been brilliant. I've enjoyed it so much.
Not a problem at all. I very much enjoyed my time.
Thank you again for joining me and my wonderful guest Wib from Snipe and Wib. If you would like to support the show, you can join patreon.com/Jordan Sorcery, where you'll get early access and exclusive content, including a research article about the links between the final programme and Warhammer history. Tune in next time as Peachy from Peachy Tips joins me to talk Brotherhood of the Wolf and Flash Gordon.